just that. And, there were several of you that married, which meant good company.
Good morning. Our chalice lighting words this morning are from Dreaming the Dark by Starhawk. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us, eyes will light up as we enter, voices will celebrate us with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter. A circle of healing, a circle of friends. Somewhere where we can be free. Let us begin our worship with music.
I'll just start off a cappella. What a lovely day for a lovely song with a lovely sun in the sky. Not a cloud to be seen, and no one is mean, 'cause the blues have just passed on by. What a lovely day for a promenade along a bed of roses in bloom. All the birds in the trees that sway in the breeze that smells of a sweet perfume. All winter long I was a humming this song on one too many lonely nights, alive with a gleam, the spark of a dream, that soon I'd be walking straight into the light. What a lovely day for a lovely smile to come and waltz on into my world. What a gas, what a joy to have a lovely boy to let me know I'm such a lovely girl. All pandemic long I was a humming this song on one too many lonely nights, alive with a gleam, a spark of a dream, that soon we'd be walking straight into the light. What a lovely day for a lovely smile to come and walk on into my world. What a gas, what a joy, who needs a lovely boy to let me know I'm such a lovely girl. What a gas, what a joy, I don't need no one else to let me know I'm such a lovely girl.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Lincoln. My name is Kathy Disney, and I am a worship associate of this church. I am joined on the chancel this morning by Amy Miller, our worship leader for today. Over the last few years, the way that we have met has often changed. But whether in person, on Zoom, or in a YouTube live stream, or in some way of being that we cannot yet imagine, but probably will involve hovercraft, worshiping together is a way to deepen our connection with the sources of meaning in our lives, and to proclaim who we are and what we are about, throwing open the doors of our congregation and proclaiming the radical love and welcome that is the heart of this community. The Unitarian Church of Lincoln aspires to be a loving community uniting reason with spiritual exploration to transform ourselves and the world. We have a big vision here, and we know that creating a loving community begins with welcome. So whether this is your first time or your 500th, if you came here hopeful or heartbroken, whatever your age, gender, skin color, whomever you love, you are welcome here. As we enter into worship, take a moment to center yourself in this space or in your living room if you are on our virtual stream. Find a comfortable place with your body. Take a few deep breaths. And let us continue with singing all together. Please stand in body or spirit and join me in singing number 188 in the gray hymnal, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. We will be doing this as a round. Yay! So the way it's going to go is we're going to sing it one. Bob is going to lead this round for us. We're going to sing it one time through all together and then break up into 4 sections and sing it twice as a round. 1 section, 2 section, 3 section, 4 section. Okay, let's do it.
I think we might do just 2 sections. So, section 1, section 2, but we'll sing it one time through together. Section 1 on this side. Ready? Come, come. Section 2. Get ready. Come. Keep going.
If anyone would like to come forward for the story, you're welcome to do so now. Today is the pumpkin run for elementary school students, so we might be a little smaller than usual. Our story today is called The Invisible Boy. Can you see, Brian, can we hear on the microphone? There we go.
Yeah.
All right. Can you see Brian, the invisible boy? Right up there. Even Mrs. Carlotti has trouble noticing him in her classroom. She's too busy dealing with Nathan and Sophie. Nathan has problems with what Mrs. Carlotti calls volume control. He uses his outside voice inside too much, and Sophie whines and complains when she doesn't get her way. Nathan and Sophie take up a lot of space. Brian doesn't. When the bell rings for recess, Micah and JT take turns choosing kids for their kickball teams. The best players get picked first. And then the best friends of the best players, and then the friends of the best friends. Only Brian is left, still waiting and hoping. JT glances in Brian's direction and just as quickly looks away. We've got enough players for each team, he tells the others. Let's play ball. In the cafeteria, Madison and her friends talk about her birthday party. The rope swing over the pool was awesome, says JT. Yeah, so was the water slide, adds Fiona. That was the best pool party ever. I'm so glad you guys had fun, says Madison. Everybody did, except Brian. He wasn't invited. At choosing time, while the other kids play board games and read, Brian sits at his table doing what he loves best. He draws fire-breathing dragons scaling tall buildings, space aliens locked in intergalactic battles, greedy pirates digging for treasure, and superheroes with the power to make friends wherever they go. On Monday morning, Mrs. Carlotti introduces Justin, a new student, to the class. Brian smiles shyly at him. Some of the other kids sneak looks at Justin, trying to figure out if he's cool enough to be their friend. And they haven't quite made up their minds yet. At lunch, Madison and JT watch Justin eat with chopsticks. What's that? Asks Madison as she points at Justin's food. It's bulgogi. Bul what? Bulgogi. It's Korean barbecued beef. My grandma made it for me. It's really good. You want to try some? There's no way I'd eat boogergi. And the kids laugh. All of them, that is, except Brian. He sits there wondering which is worse, being laughed at or feeling invisible. The next day, when Justin goes to his cubby to put away his backpack, he notices a piece of paper with his name on it. Justin, I thought the bulgogi looked good. From Brian. At morning recess, Brian finds a piece of chalk on the ground and starts drawing away. You're Brian, right? Yeah. Thanks for the note. Hey, Justin, Emilio calls out from the tetherball court. You're up next. Sorry, I gotta go, says Justin. By the way, that's a really cool drawing, he adds before taking off. Back in class, Mrs. Carlotti asks the kids to team up in 2s or 3s for a special project. The kids scurry around the room to pair off, and Brian heads toward Justin. I'm all ready with Justin, says Emilio. Find someone else. Brian looks at the floor, wishing he could draw a hole right there to swallow him up. Mrs. Carlotti said, we can have up to 3 people in our group. We're only 2. Come on, Emilio. He can be with us. Okay, I guess. Mrs. Carlotti gives the class directions for the project. Your assignment is to work together to write a story about what you see in that photograph. Use your imagination and have fun. Whoa, cool, says Emilio. What kind of people do you think would live in houses like that? I don't know, but I bet Brian could draw them to go with our story, says Justin. Brian smiles, and he takes out his lucky pen. The crooked story we made up on the spot begins their story. It's lunchtime again, Brian's least favorite part of the day. Another 20 long minutes of talking and laughing with everyone else but him. Brian hears someone shout, Hey, Brian, over here. Brian turns and sees Justin waving him over. Emilio nods at Brian as he makes room for him at the table. Justin offers him a cookie. Maybe, just maybe, Brian's not so invisible after all. That's the end of our story. If someone else can introduce the next hymn, our children will head back to their classes.
Our next hymn is in the Teal hymnal, number 1007, There's a river flowing in my soul. Please stand in body or in spirit. A central part of our service is the time we join together as a community to mark the moments of our lives. We share with one another our joys, our sorrows, the events that mark our journeys of our lives. Our joys are shared and magnified. We are comforted in our sorrows. At this time, I invite you to speak into the shared space or type into the chat, if you are virtual, your name or the name of another you wish to be remembered in sorrow. I will repeat the names spoken aloud here for those in the live stream, and Amy will read from the chat the names that are written there. Please remember that there is a delay from the live chat, and we will take the time to allow for that. Please share with us out loud your name or anyone who you would like to have remembered in sorrow. Nicole and McKenna. Leah, who just lost her Aunt Mary. Mark. Barbara, who is not healing very fast.
My niece Katie, who has long COVID.
Molly's niece Katie, who has long COVID. And from the chat.
Dana and Craig, Pharaoh Sanders, James, and please keep Titan in your thoughts. His surgery has been postponed until Thursday.
Joy exists in the same room as sorrow. I invite you to speak into this shared space or type into the chat your name or the name of another you wish to be remembered in joy.
Our daughter Rose Winter, who is now half a century old.
Rose Winter, who is now half a century young and old. One more. Katie Joe. Hearts make love. Eli Yutter Bowman. And from the chat.
Many of us have been watching with concern about Marcia and Ray's journey. Marcia shares this joy. On Wednesday, the amazing neuro team at UNMC repaired Ray's vertebral artery, and about the same time, their new healthy grandson was born.
It's wonderful. Now, let us lift up all these names and those just as keenly felt but unspoken, and hold them within the care of this community in a moment of shared silence. Thank you for your presence. Each week, we take up a collection to support the work of this church and our partners in the community. We do this because just as we all grow from our participation in the community, we all give back through our time, our talent, and our treasure. As the next offering of music is played, will the ushers please come forward? You may also text your offering to UC Lincoln and the amount to 73256. That's UC Lincoln and the amount to 73256. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Child of the gods, Spirit here on earth, my angels above measure her worth. Mother of all, and a wife to her man, and a keeper of the home, so they'll never care to roam. Love to the child, mistress of rebirth. Love to the child, mistress of rebirth, molder of his worth, spirit full of mirth, child of the immortal gods down here on
Good morning. My name is Amy Meller. I'm a member of the Worship Associates, and I have been a member of this church and belonging to this church since about 2001. This month's theme has been belonging because it's so important and such an essential human need to do feel as if we have a community where we are accepted for our full selves and do not have to hide any part of ourselves. Now, in the Soul Matters packet this month describing belonging and offering resources, they recommended a book which I went ahead and checked out from the library and read. It was called It's All Relative: Adventures Up and Down the Family Tree by A.J. Jacobs. The author wants to feel more connected to people. He's worried that he's a little misanthropic, he's a little pessimistic about humanity, so he decides to take as many of the different DNA tests that are out there and find out how many different family members he has, assuming that if he has more connections to people, he might feel softer towards them. Quote, "For example, I'd always hated Judge Judy. I found her so obnoxious and shouty. Then, doing research, I found out she's my 8th cousin twice removed. Weirdly, my perspective shifted. Suddenly I was like, she's not so bad. She's Cousin Judy. She's doing her shtick. She's probably very nice." It is a funny book, and I do recommend it as an interesting and funny book, but in terms of advice for living, it fell short for me. The problem, for me at least, is that merely having shared DNA is no guarantee that that's going to be a group of people I belong with. Many people I know are still recovering from the wounds inflicted by their biological family members for not accepting them over their sexual orientation, their gender identity, their different religious or political beliefs. So A.J. Jacobs' decision to just find more relatives wasn't automatically a solution to finding where we belong for me. Belonging can be hard in a state like Nebraska if you have progressive politics. I have one friend who describes that living here is like being a single blueberry in a sea of red tomato soup. And then I, of course, live with white privilege, but my friends and family members who are people of color talk about the fact that it's always accepted that white is the norm or the baseline, and so their daily experience is one of feeling as if they do not belong. For me, this church has been a huge part of making me feel as if I belong in the world. But I didn't find the Unitarians until my middle age. So before I'd even heard of Unitarianism, for me, where I belonged, nerds. That's right, I want to talk today about belonging as a nerd. How big of a nerd am I? Well, in my library with all of the various books, there's at least 2 shelves that are just comic books. My midlife crisis, I treated myself to buying Jedi robes so I could play act that I was Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm such a nerd, it doesn't matter how many times I rewatch Lord of the Rings. When Boromir falls under the orcs as he's trying to protect Merry and Pippin, I cry until I hurt myself. I'm such a nerd. When I found out that the Duolingo free language app had Klingon, I almost signed up, but I decided Spanish was more practical. Now, Books and movies tell us nerds don't belong. It's almost the definition of being a nerd. We are weird, socially awkward, we're unfashionable. Like the invisible boy in the Time for All Ages story, nobody wants to sit with the nerd. Nerds are an object of humor or pity because we absolutely don't belong. But the thing is, nerds may not belong with the mainstream or with the popular kids at their table who are mean. Nerds have mastered for decades the art of finding community and finding people across much more diverse lines of age and race and gender and politics than any other group, I would argue. We don't rely upon shared DNA. We ask, are you into Star Wars? Are you into Star Trek? Dungeons and Dragons? Doctor Who? Harry Potter? Even though we don't like JK, we still love Harry Potter. All of these different fandoms are places where folks have found their homes. Now, our minister, Oscar Sinclair, sometimes describes church as one of the last intergenerational places where people of all ages come together outside of the family, where you might talk to someone who has a completely different life experience than you because it's just not that common for teenagers and retirees to sit down with each other. But I would argue that we should put down nerd spaces very high on that list as well. Take your average 88-year-old and 8-year-old. Say that they're sitting at a potluck table together. They may not have a lot to start chatting about until they both realize they love Star Wars. Now, all of a sudden, they're swapping ideas about the revelation that stormtroopers have feelings. They're talking about their favorite color, if they had a lightsaber, which droid they'd want to be friends with. All of a sudden, it doesn't matter that one of them has a bedtime at 8 p.m. and that one of them is going to be taking their teeth out before they go to bed. Nerdiness has united these two people with very different world experiences because they both have this shared imaginary world that means so much to them. Once you're in that imaginary world, you also then have shared values, just like at this church. You recognize we want to try hard to conquer the world with a sonic screwdriver and a bag of jelly babies, not with violence. We realize we all in this shared imaginary world are hopeful and optimistic that even little hobbits have the willpower and the optimism to walk all the way to Mordor to defeat ultimate evil. So imaginary nerdy worlds aren't just an escape from reality, they're also aspirational for what our reality could be. They give us a refuge, and they also give us renewed determination to make this world a better one. So take Star Trek. Most of you probably know this story, but I share it anyway because it just makes me so happy every time I think about it. Actress Nichelle Nichols, who played Lieutenant Uhura, didn't love the role after the first season ended in 1967. She felt that she could do something more important, something more serious and weighty and artistic. She was getting a lot of abusive hate mail from people who hated seeing a Black woman in an important officer role on a starship. In her autobiography, she describes she'd started to think about maybe she would just step down. In fact, she started to talk to her castmates about the fact she wasn't going to ask to come back for season 2. And then she went to an NAACP banquet, and she got to meet Martin Luther King Jr. While she's all excited about meeting MLK, it turns out he's excited to meet her. He told her, "Our whole family watches the show. We adore your character." She said to him, "Oh, I hate to hear that. I was just getting ready to step down." And he said, "You cannot. You must not. Don't you see how important this presence and your character is? This isn't a Black role or a female role. You have the first non-stereotypical role on television. You're breaking ground. For the first time," he told her, "the world sees us as we should be seen, as equals, as intelligent people, as we should be." Nichelle stayed on the show. There was only 3 seasons. It's a TV show that aired for 3 seasons with cardboard sets and ridiculously bad fight scenes, but the ripples that it sent out have been unceasing. Our first African American woman astronaut, Mae Jemison, was only 11 when Star Trek first aired, and she has spoken about how Uhura's character inspired her to pursue a science career. So science fiction, fantasy, nerdy worlds can inspire us, but it also then connects us to the other nerds who love these worlds. And that means a lot broader connections. Doesn't matter how much is in your bank account. It doesn't matter whether you use a wheelchair. Doesn't matter what your gender identity or sexual orientation is. If you love that world as much as I do, we have something in common and we can move forward. Now, there have been insidious efforts by bad guys to co-opt and take over the worlds of science fiction and fantasy and make it their own. Most recently, we're seeing people raging about the reboot of Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings because they have racially diverse casts. I don't know what you do with people who say that in worlds with sentient trees and goblins and orcs, they all also have to be white. I mean, the ludicrousness of that position is terrible. But as we watch about bad guys raging at the diverse casting, it's a reminder we don't just passively receive these science fiction fantasy worlds. It is something that we have to actively work to protect and make sure that everyone feels that they do belong. True belonging in nerddom or in a church isn't just, oh, I feel good, thank you. It's also a gift that, having received it from all of you, I need to make sure that I'm extending it back to you and to new people that may come into our doors. Whether you're talking about the Unitarian Church or a new Dungeons and Dragons group, we have to both look to be welcomed and in turn welcome others. Now, my most recent experience of nerddom post-pandemic was attending my very first ever science fiction convention. Last month, I went to Worldcon in Chicago. It's one of the oldest science fiction events. They started it in 1939, and they had a little hiatus during World War II, but they have met every year since 1939. The activities last month include panels about science, costume contest, art show, and exhibit, but the heart of this event is books. Surely most of the people attending also have favorite nerdy TV shows and movies, but this is primarily a book lovers event. If you pay the membership fee, you are allowed then to vote on the best short story, the best novel of the year. Think of it as the People's Choice Award for nerdiness. There is the Nebula Award, where professional associations of authors hand out awards, but the Hugos are where we, the people, get to pick our favorite authors. Worldcon has been working very hard to be as welcoming as possible. Their code of conduct reads like something I could see posted here in our church. Quote, discrimination based on or not limited to gender, race, ethnicity, religion, age, sexual orientation, gender identity, neurodiversity, physical appearance, body size, physical or mental disability will not be tolerated. We're committed to being anti-racist. Anti-racism includes working to exclude bias from our event, acknowledging our prejudices and benefits accrued from systems of power, and working to educate all members about racially motivated aggressions and microaggressions. End quote. In other words, they may as well have hung a banner saying, all are welcome here in the way our church does. Now, since this year's Worldcon was in Chicago, a group of friends from my science fiction book club here in Lincoln decided to drive up together for the occasion. And in the year leading up, we tried to read all the nominees for Best Novel, Best Short Story. One of our favorite nominated books was this one, A Light from Uncommon Stars. I want to give you enough of a teaser so you might want to read the book, but not too much information. There's space aliens who are fleeing a galactic war, and in order to do so, they are disguised as an immigrant family running a donut shop in California. There's a demon swapping souls for people who want to become violin virtuosos, but she falls in love. And most importantly, the central character, Katrina, a transgender teenager forced to run away from her family because they reject her for her gender identity. Katrina is a violin prodigy, but she's untrained, and she ends up in the middle of the space aliens and the demons. The reviewers are describing it as joyful, cathartic, revelatory, a story of hope and redemption. The author, Rika Aoki, is also a force to be admired. She has a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing. She's a university professor. She's won multiple awards for her poetry and scholarly non-fiction work, and she's a black belt in judo. But she's also an Asian American trans woman navigating life in the United States. And maybe that's why even this accomplished author and scholar is capable of feeling as if she doesn't belong. The night before the Hugo Awards, I'm scrolling Twitter in the hotel room looking forward to the events the next day, and I saw that Rika, the author of this finalist book, had just tweeted, quote, "I'm doing a book signing tomorrow. I'm having visions of nobody showing up. If you're at Worldcon, please come by. Just thought I'd put this out there." Think about that. This is a woman whose professional credentials far rival anything that many of us will ever have. Her award shelf has to circle the entire living room. She had been chosen by the fans as a finalist, but even she was not sure if she belonged. Even she was worried whether she was welcome. So I tweeted back on behalf of the whole book club. "Well, we're worried we might not be able to get our autographs signed because we all loved your book so much. We came all the way from Nebraska. We can't wait to see you. We'll be first in line." And she tweeted back, "OMG, thanks." Now, you know what happened. When the actual book signing started, her line was far longer than many of the other people signing autographs. Everybody of all different ages and gender identities and races were all standing in line, clutching our copies of Light from Uncommon Stars. And because it took a little bit, we started talking with each other. We swapped pizza recommendations for the best pie in Chicago. We were asking, "Where did you get that shirt? I love that nerdy shirt." Even within the nerdy community, there was the microcosm of we all belonged because we all loved the book and we loved the values in the book. When I finally got up front to meet the author, I had the same problem I always do when I meet famous people. I can never think of anything to say. The only thing that comes to mind, whether it's an actor or a musician or an author, is, "I really like your stuff." And that doesn't quite seem adequate, but that's all I've ever got. So this time I had my variant. I handed her the book and I said, "My whole book club in Lincoln, Nebraska really liked your book." And she just lit up and said, "You're the one who tweeted, I was having such a bad night last night, thank you." And then she hugged me and I hugged her and she got teary-eyed and I got teary-eyed. And I had her sign the book for our fellow church members here, Jamie Radcliffe, Wendy Hines, and their son Dom, because they're science fiction folks too, and I was hoping they would love the book. I told her that, and I'm not 100% sure how I got back out of the line. We both were pretty emotional by the time I left. And I want to invite us all to think about that the next time we're feeling a little bit like the invisible boy who doesn't have anyone who wants to sit with him at lunch. Maybe you've got a case of imposter syndrome. Maybe you're feeling shy about attending that church event because, I don't know, will anyone actually want to talk to me? Everyone, even award-winning black belt judo authors, are shy and uncertain about if they belong. No matter what the person is projecting, they probably could use an extra extended hand to remind them that they belong. I need it sometimes, you need it sometimes, and when we have folks walk in through our doors, we have to make sure that we're conveying to them, welcome, you do belong here. I hope that we continue to invite and find more people to come to this shared refuge in this church. It's nerve-wracking being a Unitarian. It's hard inviting people to come to church because we do not want to sound like proselytizers. We do not want to sound like those other types of religions that are a little pushy with their religious beliefs. But this is such a good place, filled with such good people and such good values, that we probably need to push ourselves a little bit out of our comfort zone and invite people to come and feel as if they belong here too. One of the best things about nerds is we love learning as many details as possible about our specific passion area. So I'm going to give you one last nerdy tidbit. The Vulcan salute is given both as a greeting or as a farewell. The gesture was actually created by the actor who played Spock, Leonard Nimoy. When he was a little boy attending his grandfather's Orthodox synagogue, he'd seen a blessing given using this, and he thought, that seemed pretty cool. I'm going to incorporate that into this character I'm playing. Now, many people have to fiddle a little bit to get their fingers to do it, but I'm going to invite you to fiddle your fingers a little bit, practice, and in the Vulcan tradition, we say to each other, live long and prosper. Live long and prosper.
Our final hymn is number 118.
I want to make sure that I thank our musicians, our eternal evergreen talent, Bill Carpenter, as well as our guest musicians, Carrie Christ and Tetsuya Nishiyama. Carrie is offering a vocal workshop here at the church at noon here in the sanctuary space for those who wish to join and to take advantage of her amazing talent. Closing words I'm going to leave you with is a quote from this book, A Light from Uncommon Stars. There is still work to do. There would be good days ahead and terrible ones, but now there was understanding, and with understanding, all things are possible. May the force be with you.
Feel free to join in at any point during this tune. It's one of my favorites. We've sort of de-genderfied the middle bit. So, did we get the lyrics for that? Okay, great. So, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Play it, Bobby. With God's inspiration, united all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. With me. La 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 ba ba do le o da da do le o de do bo de de do yo de de o bo de do de de bo bo de bo 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 de de o with me.
That was great. Thank you so much. Great. We could get you back in here as a solo to do a solo. Yeah. Okay. I do, just not frequently. I see. I mean, I can tell you a lot of stuff. Yeah. I just surprised I didn't see you. Yeah, I mean, I've got a bunch of jobs. I have 3 kids, but I got my GMA for 16.